Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Right now, I'm just kind of relaxing in between packing. We've got a big trip coming up, which is my annual journey up to Alaska. So if you guys haven't been following me for very long, you might not know. I have been going up to Southeast Alaska, working at the Burghoff Wilderness Lodge. It's near Sitka, Alaska. I've been doing that since 2005. I graduated high school, and right after graduation, I went up there for my first season, and I've been doing it ever since because it's been a very transformative experience working up there. And so I just figured I'd share with you guys how it came to be that I would work up in Alaska during the summertime, especially as a bass fishing guy. You know, you wouldn't think that a guy that has dedicated his life to catch bass would work up in Alaska every year. But it truly is just part of my life now. But to start from the very beginning, so like in high school, I was going to Paradise High School in Northern California, in Paradise, California, which is near Chico, north of Sacramento. And at that time, I knew I wanted to pursue tournament bass fishing as a career. And so I was like honed in on that idea. And so it was, I think, my junior year of high school, or maybe, no, it was a senior year of high school. I was working at this camp called Woodleaf. And Woodleaf was this outdoor school where, you know, I think it was like fourth and fifth graders would get bussed up there and get to stay there for a week. And then there would be counselors. And I went there when I was little, when I was in fourth or fifth grade. I went up there, had a blast, even though I got pneumonia, which really sucked. It was really cold. It even snowed, and I got pneumonia. But before I got pneumonia, I had an absolute blast. And so I knew that I wanted to be a counselor there, you know, when I got older. And so senior year, I, applied and got a counselor job for, I think it was just 1 or 2 weeks. But during that time, there in Woodleaf, they had 2 ponds. And, of course, ponds, they got to have bass in them. Bass are everywhere. If you see a pond, they probably got bass, other than like the highest altitude lakes, you know, and also in Alaska, of course. So when I got there, you know, aside from my normal like counselor duties, you know, just trying to corral these kids, I also took it upon myself to teach these kids how to go bass fishing in these ponds. So I brought some rods and went down there and would show these kids how to fish, you know, how to, you know, throw a jig and a Texas rig, all those different things, all those basics. And the guy that ran the school, Woodleaf, his name was TP John Hendrickson. He is not only the guy that ran Woodleaf, but also just a very, very well-known photographer, wildlife photographer, especially when it comes to raptors, you know, birds of prey. And anyways, he saw how passionate I was about fishing, and he pulled me aside one day, and he's just like, you know, I've got a friend in Alaska that runs a lodge, and you know, if you're interested, I could get you a job up there. And at first, you know, I was just kind of like, this guy just doesn't know what, you know, the difference between bass and salmon. You know, I'm like, I'm not a salmon fisherman. I'm not a halibut fisherman. I'm a bass guy, you know. And at first I was like, kind of turned my nose up on the whole idea of going up there. But then I had kind of this, this realization moment where I was just like, dude, if you don't take this opportunity, you may never, ever get an opportunity like this again. Even though it's not in your wheelhouse, you have to take this opportunity. So I ended up saying yes. He connected me with my boss, Mike Trotter, up at the Burghoff Wilderness Lodge. And I was set to go up the day of my graduation. So I literally graduated high school. The night I went to my graduation party hung out with everybody, and 2 hours later, I hopped on a flight in Sacramento, or 2 or 3 hours later, hopped on a flight in Sacramento, went up to Sitka, Alaska, and had never met my boss. I'd talked to him on the phone once. I really didn't know a whole lot about the operation other than what I saw on the website. Which if you guys want to see what I saw for the very first time when I went up to Alaska, go to flyfishalaska.com. My boss has not changed his website since I went up there the very first time. So you can go see exactly what I saw before I headed up there. And I was really excited. I remember before, my flight up there, my boss had sent me a list of things that I needed to bring, things that would be helpful as a guide. And really, I was called a guide, but I was a deckhand. I'm essentially just whatever you need done. I'm the guy. Ice and coolers, organizing fish and whatever needs to be done. That's my job. But anyways, he had this list of things I needed to bring, normal things like flashlights, a pocket knife, certain clothes, things like that. And I remember going shopping with my dad. Neither of us had any clue as to what I needed. I ended up bringing this hat that looked like it was something that, Crocodile Dundee had worn at some point. It was this ridiculous leather wide-brimmed hat that when you were sweating or when it was wet, it would just be so uncomfortable. So I got that. Had one of those typical fishing vests. It had the little wool thing where you could put your flies and stuff. I thought I was buying things that would play the part up there, but I was looking ridiculous. And then it said bring a pocket knife, and of course, what do I bring? I bring it was a 12-inch long Glock survival knife. So totally impractical. It ended up becoming my my fire pick, for my fireplace. And brought all these ridiculous things. And also my bear gun that I brought up that first season was the gun that I carried for about 16 years after that, 16 or 17 years. And that was my 44 lever action Winchester 94 AE, if you want to look up the model number. But it was essentially a saddle rifle, lever action, 44 Magnum. And my dad got it for me for my graduation present for bear protection up there, because you have to have something to protect yourself from and the guests from bears. That gun, I have it behind me right now in my room, and it's actually a gun that I retired from up there because it really wasn't meant for that environment, the saltwater environment. It does okay in fresh water, but really it's not supposed to get that wet because it was a blued finish, and it tends to rust really fast. You can literally watch it rust if you get any salt on it. And I'd have to go through a routine of washing it down with fresh water when I get back, and then oiling it down and hanging it above the stove every single night. But it was a really, really, really good gun. I was super accurate with it, and never had to shoot a bear, thankfully. Never had to do it. But it was a really good gun. So that was one of the things that I brought that was actually a good move. Yes, it would have been better if it was just a Marine Magnum, shotgun with a stainless steel finish or something like that, something that could withstand the saltwater environment a little bit better. But overall, that lever action was legit, and I actually hunt whitetail with it now. But anyway, so I had all that stuff, a lot of ridiculous things that I never needed. And, that was my first year in 2005. So going up there, one thing that you guys know about me now is that I work really hard. I do a lot of different things and really, put forward the effort. It doesn't always show. This season I'm having some really, really bad tournaments, but I'm putting forth the effort, and I'm working really hard. But prior to going to Alaska for my first season, I had a really hard time with motivation as a kid. I was not very good at doing chores, doing yard work and things like that. And so I was kind of on the path of being a lazy person overall. And I knew things needed to change. I just never really had the outlet to really keep me, focused and dedicated, and disciplined. And going up there, the first 2 weeks of working in Alaska was the hardest time period that I'd ever experienced, when it comes to like hard work. We'd have to wake up at pretty much 4 o'clock every morning. You'd have to be down at the dock at 4:45, ice in coolers. Okay. That was like my first job, is to go down to the dock, ice coolers. Then I got to come up. I got to do, do coffee, bring the coffee to all the guests, and then a bunch of other stuff, do compost and things like that. And it was really hard for me. Like those first couple weeks, it was really difficult to break out of that, that lazy mentality, but it did just that. Over time, it just started getting easier and easier to kind of, do that hard work, that hard labor. And what I've realized since, because I've seen a lot of kids that were in my position, young people that came up to work there, they never make it past those 2 weeks. There's some people that for whatever reason, I was able to make it through those 2 weeks. I think it was because I loved the people that I was working with, and I had a good sense of humor, and that kind of helped me, make it through. But if people couldn't make it through those first 2 weeks, they just weren't going to last long up there. If they couldn't push through that lack of sleep and hard work, they couldn't make it up there. And thankfully, I was able to make it through those 2 weeks. And ever since, I have had a level of discipline when it comes to, a work ethic that I solely think Alaska is responsible for. And so, like, to me, when people ask, where I get the the work ethic to do all the things that I do in bass fishing or in my personal life, it always comes back to Alaska in that first year, because before going up there, I really never had anything in my life that gave me that outlet, or that kind of like forced discipline that Alaska did. Because if you didn't complete your job, everything starts falling apart. People start getting pissed at you, and you live up there, so you don't want to get people pissed at you, and you want to make sure that you're staying on top of your job, because you're a key part of that whole business, the whole logistics of running a wilderness lodge, out there where we're just out in the middle of nowhere. It forces you to have a good work ethic if you can survive, that first introductory couple weeks, which is kind of a shock. So the reason I say I'm mentioning this is because Alaska has been such a key part of my life because of that. And another thing that it taught me was self-reliance. Again, I was kind of a lazy kid, but I also didn't have a lot of self-reliance. I didn't have a lot of skills that could help me in the real world. And especially in tournament fishing, with all the equipment that we have, the engines, the electronics, the be able to work on an electrical system or work on a mechanical system, learn how to change a lower unit or change the oil on a 4-stroke, whatever it may be. In Alaska, we have to do that ourselves. If something breaks, there's no shop that we can go to quickly get things fixed. We have to do it ourselves. Now, if we absolutely had to, like if an engine just completely broke down, we could go ahead and put it on a barge, send it over to Rocky's Marine, in Petersburg, and get it fixed. But we would see it probably in the next season on the barge when we're bringing everything back to the lodge. And so you have to grow this kind of this skill set of self-reliance when you're working up there. So like, not only did it really help me find my work ethic in my life, but it helped me be more self-reliant. And that's why you see me with a ton of tools, a ton of spare parts. I feel comfortable working on my own equipment on my boat. And a lot of people, like if the service trailers aren't there, I've had a lot of people, a lot of my friends that rely on me to help them, fix things. And I love doing it because I have those skill sets from working up there. And aside from that, the first few years that I worked in Alaska, I actually was just a freshwater guide. So you have to have a Coast Guard captain's license to be able to guide out on the Salt, and so like, or any navigable water. And so for the first few years, I was just kind of assisting on rivers and freshwater trips and things like that. But I started getting that skill set of how how to interact with people, and getting a really good foundation of social interaction, which I also did as a waiter, when I was going to college. Both of those jobs really helped me with that, which has been a skill that I think is invaluable in life. Just knowing how to deal with people, even at their worst. I mentioned that we're like everybody that works there, we're a community that lives together. Like when work is done at 10 o'clock at night, hopefully 10 o'clock at night, we go back to our cabins right next to each other. There's no like go home. We all live in this little shanty town, in the back of the lodge. So it's like we all have to live together, good, bad, or indifferent. We have to figure out how to push through our frustrations or whatever is going on in our lives and work together. So that's a skill that honestly, a lot of people don't get to foster because they're not in that position where they can't clock out and just disconnect from people. We're just always together up there. So you have to learn how to like be one cohesive family. And I think that is another thing that Alaska has taught me over the years. And also, guiding up there, like I said, the first, I think it was 4 or 5 years that I worked up there, I was just a deckhand and would assist on freshwater trips. But then I got my captain's license and started guiding as a captain. I wasn't very good in the very beginning. It took me about like 8 years to like feel like I've got the hang of going out there, finding halibut, finding salmon, catching fish, not learn how to run the boats and all that stuff. A funny story, by the way. So the first season, I know I'm going back and forth and going on these tangents, but I think that you guys would appreciate this, is so the first day, or it was like first or second day that I was on the job. So that first week in 2005, I get there, my boss, Mike, he knows that I'm a bass fisherman. He knows that I'm aspiring to be a professional bass fisherman. So he assumed that I knew how to drive a boat, which was an assumption that he shouldn't have made because I didn't have a boat at that point. I had a aluminum boat with a trolling motor on the bow, no engine on the back. So really had no clue how to drive a boat. I remember going down to the dock. There's people all around, and I have to take the skiff out and dump some halibut carcasses. Well, I get in there, I can find the key, and I know what the throttle is because I've seen people do it before, but I don't really know how to work it. So I turn it on, I untie, and I put it into gear, and I didn't realize like the harder you push, the more gas you're giving it. And I ended up like literally driving this boat called the Mustang, which I hated that boat, by the way. So it deserved every dent that I put in it that day. I put it into gear, put the throttle down, and went straight into the rocks. Like literally first experience in a boat. I just blasted it right into the rocks, and I know that I broke a weld at that point, but that was my first experience in a boat, and then the next day, my boss he took took grace on me, gave me a lot of grace, and ended up having somebody else teach me how to drive a boat. And so this guy named Bradley, who was pretty much the caretaker of the lodge, he went out and showed me how to drive a boat, and which was really special because he ended up passing away probably about 6 or 7 years later. But he was a really important figure for me early on there. So yeah, anyways, that was just kind of a side note, but Alaska overall has taught me all about, boats and driving boats, guiding, all those things. And it's just been a wonderful experience. I mean, I get to every year, especially as I get older, I go up there and just, I walk up to our cabins up there where we stay. We get electricity, and we get wood fire stove in each of our cabins. We make our own electricity, by the way, through hydropower. And I go up there and put my bags in the cabin, and I get out and I just look at these massive, Sitka spruce trees that are, you could take 3 or 4 people and you couldn't, go around the entire tree, with your arms out. That's how big they are. And I'll just look at this massive rainforest, just lush, full of life, and I'm like, how incredibly lucky I am to have this opportunity to come up here every single year. And nowadays, in the very beginning, I was going up for pretty much the entire season. My first 2 seasons, I did almost a full season. The first season I got in June when I graduated, and then closed down the lodge in October. The next year I opened up the lodge and stayed the whole season. But nowadays I just go up for like a month, 3 weeks to a month or something like that. And it's just very, very special to have that opportunity to go up there and experience Alaska, not only as like a tourist, like in a way where you're just going up there and you get to just experience it for a short period of time. I actually get to live it. Go up there and intimately, have an intimate relationship with the environment up there. That my little slice of Southeast Alaska, I know that place like the back of my hand when it comes to, the fishing areas and the, just overall the stomping grounds and stuff like that, the history of it. It's just really special to get to know a place that's so untouched like that, and get to live there. And I've been doing it for 19 years now. So anyways, guys, hopefully this video wasn't just, a boring little rant. Hopefully it was a story that you guys can kind of relate to and enjoy. But Alaska is a very important place for me. And again, very, very fortunate I get to go up there. I head up on Friday this week, and I'll be returning 3 weeks later. So, with a kid now, having the baby, little Riley, I can't do much more than that. Not only that, but I'm like overloaded this season with my travel schedule. It's been absolutely insane. And so as much as I'm looking forward to going up to Alaska, I'm looking forward to the season to kind of wrap up. And next year I'm going to be a little bit better with my overall schedule planning, or scheduling rather. But anyways, yeah. So heading up there this week, I'm going to try to do as much videos up there as I possibly can. It's really hard because we don't have a lot of internet at all. Like at the lodge, we have zero internet, zero cell phone. But I get a little bit of cell phone reception out when I'm saltwater fishing in most areas. So we do get a little bit of reception, and I have a booster that I bring up to help me like connect with my wife and stuff at night. But anyways, guys, that is the story of my Alaskan guide experience that I've been doing for 19 years. And again, if you guys want to check out the lodge that I work at, flyfishalaska.com. They're like booked out like 2 or 3 years in advance. It is such a crazy, it's such a crazy schedule that my boss has, and he's able to fill it every single year and you know, have several years booked out in advance. So that just goes to show you how special of an operation it is. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this story and you get to kind of understand like what I go up to Alaska for every single year. And if you have any questions at all or any requests of things that you'd like to see while I'm up there, please drop a comment below. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Enjoy the process. I'm going to see you guys out on the water.